let's give you some sporting news updates. Then when we come back, we'll be looking at what the papers are saying, and also we'll delve into the state of the nation. We've got a guest, Emmanuel Ozoimena, who is a policy consultant, who will be helping us look at the state of the nation and other issues, especially some policies of the APC-led government and what is in for the Nigerian people. That will be after this sporting news update. Hello sports fans, welcome to Sports News Update. Coach Randy Wardrop has extended invitations to Captain Rasheedat Ajibade, US-based African Queen Azizat Ashwala, and high-riding goalkeeper Chiamaka Nnadozie among a group of 22 players for the two-legged Paris Olympics final qualifying fixture against South Africa next month. Saudi Arabia-based defender Ashley Plumtree and veteran rear guard Osinachi Ohale are also called, as well as useful midfielder Deborah Abiodun and forward Esther Okoronkwo and Uchenna Kanu. They are also recalls for 2019 World Cup star Chidinma Okeke and veteran forward Chiwendu Iheazu, and a first invitation for under-20 defender Sukirat Oladipo. The Super Falcons are home for the first leg scheduled for Friday, 5th April at the MKO Abiola National Stadium, Abuja, before flying to Pretoria for the return at the Loftus Veerfield Stadium on Tuesday, 9th April. The winner over the two legs will earn one of Africa's two tickets to this year's Women's Olympic Football Tournament, with Zambia and Morocco to clash for the other ticket on the same date. Didier Deschamps has insisted William Saliba continues to struggle to break into France's starting lineup because his shaky international displays haven't gone well. The defender has enjoyed a superb season with Arsenal to date and played an integral role in the title charge for Mikel Arteta's Premier League leaders, but his fortunes at club level are stark contrast to his Le Blues' woes, with the likes of Dalot, Upamecano, Ibrahim Konate and Benjamin Pavard favored over him. Saliba was an unused substitute in France's 2-0 friendly defeat by Germany at the weekend and has started just 2 of his nation's last 18 fixtures. Saliba has made 38 appearances all competition for Arsenal this season, but has featured just 12 times on the international stage since his debut in 2022. Dani Alves has been released from prison after depositing €1 million bail bond. The footballer is also understood to have complied with the other orders of the 3 judges who said he could leave jail despite his recent rape conviction by handing in his Spanish and Brazilian passport. The 40-year-old father of 2 was freed just before the expected time of around 5 p.m. local time. As part of his bail conditions, Alves will also have to visit the court once a week to keep his freedom. He had been told he could leave Brains 2 prison near Barcelona last Wednesday after winning his bid to appeal his 4.5-year jail sentence from the comfort of his own home rather than a cell. But his failure to get together the bail bond meant he remained behind bars over the weekend. Thousands of football fans have been banned from following England at this summer's European Championship under a government clampdown on hooligans. Over 16,000 fans with football banning orders will be forced to surrender their passport to the police from 4 June until the European Championship final on 14 July to ensure they do not attempt to attend matches in Germany. Anyone failing to hand in their passport or attempting to travel to Germany will face a large fine or prison term with a maximum sentence of 6 months. The new powers to enforce fans to surrender passports have been introduced following a surge in football-related violence in recent years, with the police making 2,264 arrests at matches last season and issuing 682 new banning orders, the highest figure since 2011. And that's how we call it a wrap on the Sports News Update. I am Anton by handing in his Spanish and Brazilian passport. That's how we call it a wrap on the Sports News Update. I am Anthony Momodu.
Welcome to Global Morning.
The death toll from flooding.
Welcome back. You're still watching Africa's finest breakfast show. It's Global Morning on Global Television, and we're looking at, it's now time for us to look at what the papers are saying this morning in Nigeria and the top headlines across the big papers. And we'll be beginning with we've got the Daily Trust, we've got Business, we've got The Nation, Tribune, Punch, and Vanguard. We'll be looking at all these national dailies to get all the top headline stories to get you well informed. And the man who is tasked with the big job of doing the very balanced analysis and in-depth analysis is not a person but a policy consultant, one renowned in Nigeria. His name is Emmanuel Ozoemena, joining me live in the studios.
Good morning.
Nice to have you join us once again.
Good morning, viewers.
All right, let's begin looking at the papers, what the papers are saying this morning. We'll begin with, we've got the Daily Times has the big story. We've got the Daily Times. Let's see what the Daily Times is telling us. This morning we've got Governor Lawal to Tinubu, please help Zamfara. That's the Daily Times is what we're looking at this morning. We've got the Daily Trust instead on the screen. Let's look at the Daily Times and see what the Daily Times has in store for us. It said, Governor Lawal to Tinubu, please help Zamfara under siege. It's the headline story coming from the Daily Times, and that's the big headline story there. And we've got other, the CBN raises a benchmark interest rate by 200 basic points. Is another top story there. And we've got a bridge collapses in U.S. after being hit by cargo ship. Is another headline story from the Daily Times. And we've got a PDP reviews tenure of executives in 26 states. Is another headline story from the Daily Times this morning. All right, let's just look at some of the big stories there from the Daily Times. Looking at, okay, my producer tells me let's go for a very quick break before we start our analysis of the stories. Please stay with us. right, welcome back. It's now time for us to get into the analysis. Let's just begin quickly with what the Daily Times said, talked about. One of the big headlines is Governor Lawal Tinubu help Zamfara under siege. Remember the last time a governor cried out for help was Babagana Zulum, and it was a late response from the federal government, and before we knew it, the bandits and terrorists overran the state. Now that Governor Lawal is crying out, what's your expectation? And does this tell us that all the comments of the service chiefs and all the talk about them getting the job done is next to nothing?
Well, I think what to do, if you ask me, should be to understand the dynamics of security challenges. It's not a walk in the park, it's not a tea party, but rather a very tough job. Tough job in terms of the first thing to do is to have a reflective analysis of what is the nature of that challenge. We need to understand it. Then what likely solutions should we apply? What sort of remedies? I think nobody should expect the security challenges to disappear in one day. It's a tough job. I mean, I'm sure the service chiefs, security chiefs, and everybody within that ecosystem understands that it's a tough job. You're not fighting people who are just coming to you, just like that. They're also prepared on their own part. So what to do is the governor, as the chief security officer of his state, Zamfara, I'm sure if you recall, Northwest has been a hotbed of security challenge in Nigeria. That's where banditry started. We had in the Northeast, we had the terror agents there, the Boko Haram and all that, moved from there to now Southeast, where you have secessionist movement. Here in North Central, you have this cattle rustling that also had grown into banditry. I mean, kidnap in Niger, killings or invasion of communities in Benue and what have you. So then on the part of Northeast, you can study the dynamics of the security challenge there. So the governor has some access to intelligence. He's saying, look, what is on ground now is beyond me. I need help. It's a normal thing to do. Say, please, can you bring more help? There are security formations in the state. You have DSS, you have the immigration services, you have civil defense, you have police, you have the military, all arms of the military in Zamfara state. But he's saying, look, we need more deployment. That's simply what the help is. Call for help simply means.
All right, let's move on to what the Daily Trust is saying this morning. The big headlines on the Daily Trust. Let's see what the Daily Trust has in store for us. We've got 60 hours after Kruger, students yet to reunite with families is one of the top stories on the Daily Trust newspaper. And we've got, we are eager to have them back home, says parents. They are undergoing psychotherapy, says government, and submission of 2 lists responsible for 287 figure, says residents. Bandits, kingpin, yellow, jambros behind abduction. Okay, we're beginning to get a name to who is behind it. We must treat kidnappers as terrorists, says Tinubu. And 17 slain soldiers for burial in Abuja today is one of the top stories there. And we've got Kanu governor nominated Kwankwaso's son, sacked commissioner for cabinet appointment. And we've got amid soaring inflation, CBN raises benchmark lending rate to 24.7%. That's we've got other big stories there coming out. IPOP funding terrorism through sports betting platforms and crowdfunding, says federal government. And we've got Chinese sentenced to death for killing Nigerian girlfriend in Kanu. And Gumi is talking this morning. He says, I discussed how to curb banditry with security agencies. All right, let's look at issues 60 hours after Kruger students yet to reunite with families. And the parents are saying we're eager to reunite with them. And government saying they're undergoing psychotherapy. let's look at the release of those girls. The talking point has been the government pay ransom or not, and because the military said they used kinetic and non-kinetic approach. And the question is, if you use kinetic, where the result, no bandit caught, no bandit killed, no soldier lost his life, no soldier injured. Why keeping it secret? And if it's non-kinetic, who did you give the monies to? Who did you negotiate with? Who led the negotiation? Was it Ahmed Gumi or who?
I think just like Daily Trust clearly captured, 60 hours after, the students are yet to be reunited with their families. Expectedly, nobody expects them to be reunited with their families immediately. That's not the protocol in terms of rescue. There's a rescue protocol in terms of they have been rescued. They need to go through some sort of psychological support. Nobody knows what they would have been told in terms of indoctrination while they were in captivity. So many things could have happened. Some of them are traumatized emotionally, they're unstable. So they need that psychosocial support before coming back. It's a reintegration process. Yeah. I'm sure they will be thinking, are we really out, or are we still in the den of the kidnappers? So many, I'm sure they would have also, while in captivity, seen several horror things. So they need that support to be able to get back reintegrated into their families. For me, that's a normal protocol, in terms of, the challenge here in Nigeria is that everybody expects some sort of a quick fix process. But there's a protocol for reintegration. I think that's what is ongoing at the moment. Then the issue of whether ransom was paid or not, for me, it's a normal thing that has, or it's a discussion that has always come up each time, such kidnap happens. We go back and forth. Was ransom paid? No government anywhere in the world will agree that ransom was paid, and I don't expect the government to say we paid ransom. So because when you say I paid ransom, the implication is that you are likely going to make that kind of antisocial activity attractive.
But when you say you didn't pay ransom,
no,
right?
I'm not saying ransoms are not usually paid.
No, let's assume they didn't pay ransom.
Yeah.
It means they negotiated. But why are they keeping it close? Why are they shielding certain persons out of saying this person led the negotiation or not? And if there was a negotiation, it means to an extent you have details as regards where these bandits are.
In negotiation, in negotiating such a process, that's what I call confidentiality. You need to keep that confidentiality for three main reasons. If, God forbid, it happens again, and you need to contact whoever was a mediator, it's actually a mediation process, not necessarily negotiation. So that person's safety might be in danger. So you need to protect him or her and the family. You also need to keep, because it's about trust. Whoever is a mediator or a negotiator essentially has the trust of the two parties. That's why you stand in between to negotiate. So that would be betrayal of trust on the part of both parties.
So now, it's better to protect the
confidentialities are important in such a process.
What he means is that the bandits will never be caught or will not be gone after because you want to protect the trust.
No, but that's not the. We are the question you asked was simple. No. When somebody say kinetic and non-kinetic,
yes,
what does it mean?
Either we go. They applied kinetic and non-kinetic.
Yeah, which is carrot and the stick and carrot.
So if you apply kinetic, which means action, right?
Yes, that is the stick. The stick.
What we did not get any full details. So okay, why applying the kinetic force?
No, like I said, in such incidents all over the world, nobody gives you any detail. The important thing is that the victims would be reunited, are out of their den, of where they are being held, captivity, and they are going through a process of reintegration, and they will be reunited with their family. For me, results and impacts and the outcomes are what should bother us now. Or were you expecting, oh, we have lots, so and so number, like it has happened in the past? If you've spoken with victims of kidnap, just imagine, just do an imaginary whatever, and think what it means to take somebody out of his or her space into another space without their consent. And they know they are held captive and their future is unsure. So the person will be asking, can I get out of this alive? When will this end? God, let me die. You know, all kinds of options would have run through their mind. Mind you, these are minors. These are children. And you can imagine what they would have gone through. So what should bother us now should not be, oh, what is the process with which they came out? But we should be happy as a nation that we have them back and safe.
In as much as I agree to all you've said, my question is, does this mean the cycle is going to continue just because we want to protect the mediator and the process so that if it happens again, is that not going in circles? If we cannot take definite action after securing their release, are we saying we're going to allow this process to continue?
No, it's a very simple thing. There's a certain philosopher called Didi Raphael. He was a political philosopher who taught at the Oxford University for several years. He wrote a book that is classic. That book is, the title is The Problems of Political Philosophy. He's looking at a society that is growing. He said, running a society is like living in a house, and you're going to have cobwebs. And that cobwebs, all you need to do is to develop strategies of managing that cobwebs. So what you call security concerns, security issues, crises and all that are all part of running a society. You know, but what government have a responsibility to ensure protection of lives and property, and that's why you have security agencies, that's why you have laws, that's why you have all kinds of interventions to ensure that we have a society that works. So that's essentially why we have a society.
Okay, we're still going to come back to this conversation because there's still lots of questions yet unanswered because the issue of shielding, the Gumi has come out to say he's spoken to the agencies, security agencies, on how to curb the insecurity. And
this is what we discussed.
And the security people are saying he wasn't involved in the rescue of these kids. Yeah. Why the conflicting, statements?
No, but Gumi hadn't told us that I was a negotiator.
No, but he had come out to say he was willing to lead in all conversations, negotiations.
Oh, okay.
Before this.
Oh, okay, let's look at.
And if the government says, well, let's treat kidnappers as terrorists, says the president on the Daily Trust. The same president has helped. He was giving credit for helping the release of these kids. Are you saying the president just spoke to these bandits and because they heard the president's voice, they now decided to release these kids?
No, I'm not sure.
I feel like everybody's being economical with the truth.
No, I have told you the protocol of managing a crisis. That's number one. The protocol of mediation or a negotiator. Now, Gumi, I'm sure in that statement hasn't said, I negotiated the release of this.
Well, we know he has been the spokesperson. He's been the one leading the talk. He has always.
Okay,
he has never
let's
speaking on behalf of the bandits.
Let's reflect for 1 minute. Who is Sheikh Gumi? Sheikh Gumi, from his bio in the public space, is a trained medical doctor. He's a retired major of the Nigerian Army. It means he has some level of security management experience, having been in the army. So each time he speaks, and currently, sorry, I just forgot this. He's currently a cleric. So it means that he understands the religious issues that these bandits claim to belong to. I have listened to a lot of experts say, look, these people do not represent any religion. I agree with them, they don't. Or any ideology they claim to represent. I think I read a statement somewhere where a government official said, we want to invite Gumi so that he can tell us what he knows.
Yes.
Yeah. And Gumi has come out to say, look, these are the outcomes, these are the issues we discuss. Okay. So if he says that, let's believe him.
So if Gumi can come out to say this, as he's speaking out to owning up that he's a negotiator, he's in between the bandits and the government, why should we hide any other negotiator?
No, I don't understand.
You said...
Okay, hide the other negotiator.
Why?
No, I wouldn't know.
Is that negotiator not...
Okay, let's look at
because we've been told that if government allows things to fester for more than 24 hours, there are government officials involved in this. Don't you think there are
where is that? What is the source of that statement? What is the source of that statement?
Former head of...
Can you tell me, Tony,
my question... No, just 1 minute. No, my question...
Can you tell me what...
My question is to you is, if Gumi can come out boldly to say he's speaking on behalf of the bandits and wanting to negotiate on behalf of them and calling on the government to negotiate with the bandits and not do what President Muhammadu Buhari did, why should we shield the other negotiator?
Let's look at this. You remember, I think there was a certain incident where kidnapped victims were released. I think under...
Militarized regime?
No, the immediate past president, Muhammadu Buhari.
Yes.
Yeah. And we read from the public media that International Red Cross was in between the bandits and the victim and the federal government, because you need somebody in between to mediate. And International Red Cross, by the law of negotiation, the first thing you need to do is neutrality. A negotiator, a mediator must be neutral.
And are you saying there's no benefit to the middleman?
No, I wouldn't know. I'm not a negotiator. So
what
I'm simply doing is to review.
There's no benefit for the negotiator.
What I'm simply doing is to review the existing literature on these issues. I mean, there are corpus of literature. People have done studies. People in criminology, sociology, political science, crisis management. I mean, the existing literature simply states that the first thing you need is neutrality. That neutrality wins the trust of everybody on both sides. And that's why you can bring parties to the table and say, look, let's find a way out.
All right, we'll still be talking about this for a long time. Let's look at the 17 slain soldiers who were killed in Ughelli, Delta State, the burial for today. For you, there was a conferment of a post who must, honors on this men. Is it usually that's okay for you to do that? Safe to say just because they died in the line of duty, then they just deserve that conferment of honors. Is it completely a right policy?
Well, I think if you ask me, we haven't done enough.
Because investigations have not been completed, to be sure. If that alleged peacekeeping mission was truly authorized, the DHQ hasn't come out to say they gave the authorization for those senior army officers to move in. Because there's this issue of resource being the center of point attraction that made those soldiers run into that ambush. Investigations have not come out to tell us truly the DHQ gave those authorization for them to move in, what led to what. So don't you think the government was just too much in a hurry to confer those honors?
I wouldn't think the government is too much in a hurry. Ask me why. My reasons are clear. First, these are gallant soldiers. They are officers and men who have dedicated their life to protect the integrity of Federal Republic of Nigeria. That's number one. Number two, they died in the line of duty. Number three.
Was it an approved? Was it a personal duty? That's where the question is. It's just like this Super Cup.
hold on.
who later got indicted for corrupt practices with Hush Puppy. Before then, he was celebrated as a super cop. But right now, he's been wanted by the U.S. and Nigeria refusing to repatriate him.
At this moment,
give people titles just for
at this moment, I think it will be a disservice to their memory.
No,
hold on. It will be I think
honors.
Yeah.
Because honors are supposed.
Just 1 minute. It will be a disservice to the memory of these 17 gallant officers for us to focus on whether one was the deployment authorized or not.
If it was for their personal good, they went in.
At this moment, their families need closure. You agree with that? They are grieving families.
Are you also aware that lots of innocent indigenes of Okuma community have been slain?
Hold on.
The village burnt down.
Their families would need a closure. We're talking about people who are husbands, brothers, cousins, nephews, fathers to people.
Are you saying those, those killed in Okuma
we'll get to that. We also get to that. Okay. And at this moment, the soldiers who died are unable to, you can't bring them to a court to defend themselves.
True.
So whatever we are doing now,
it's for their memory.
Whatever we are doing in terms of inquiry is actually to take lesson. It becomes lessons learned. Okay. And then how do we do future deployment? How do we ensure that we do not repeat it? I'm sure if I'm in service, for instance, if I'm a soldier and I hear people die on the line of duty and they are honored, I will look forward to be more committed to my duty. That's number one. I'm not saying I'm not saying an inquiry shouldn't be done. We will have an inquiry.
Okay.
And what are the outcomes of those inquiries? Will be lessons learned. How do we do future engagement? How should we engage? Should it be get the police first, or a joint patrol first, or get the community people to get to a neutral ground for negotiation? We'll deal with those other issues. But for now, what I think we should focus on is how do we get closure to the families of these gallant soldiers who paid the supreme price. Very, very important.
All right, we are still looking at issues as regards the slain, 17 soldiers for burial today in Abuja. That's how we're going to close the shop for paper review, though we'll be looking at some issues from the papers and discussing it in the coming minutes. I will go for a very quick break. When we return from the break, it's going to be termed State of the Nation, where we'll be looking at different issues, one after the other, as we look to get closure, like you said, on different issues that are making the rounds in Nigeria. Stay with us after this break. right, welcome back. It's now time for us to look at the state of the nations as we look at different issues making the rounds in Nigeria. We're still looking at we've done with the Kuruga kidnapping the school children, where we already know that 6 of the children are currently receiving treatment as we speak. And let's also move on to other issues as regards. Let's talk about the UN Security Council passes resolution for ceasefire. That's our first State of the Nation talking point we'll be looking at this morning. I'm still with the policy consultant in the person of Emmanuel Ozoimena, still in the live studio as we look at different issues beginning from the global scene. And let's look at the fact that the U.S. refused vetoing this recent resolution by the United Nations Security Council, and making a very strong statement to Israel to say they need to be ceasefire. Do you think Israel is maybe going overboard the way it is now that the U.S. is no longer backing their war in Gaza?
The U.S. cannot be said not to be backing, supporting Israel.
They've been vetoing
hold
the
on.
resolutions, but this time around they have refused to, and they are even calling on Israel to, agree to the ceasefire.
Okay, let me tell you what is going on. What is going on clearly is this. I have listened to Benjamin Netanyahu. He's clear about what Israel intends to do in Gaza. They say we must clean up Gaza before we pull out. That's number one. Then secondly, they are also insisting that every Israeli who is being held hostage must return. So that's where they are. So that's where they are. So for US, I'm sure if you recall, a couple of days ago, still approved a budget for the Israeli military. And a budget for the Israeli defense is still a support. So nothing has changed. But they didn't vote for the ceasefire. So it's still...
Abstained.
Yeah, no, abstaining. Actually, is also a statement. Because at that level of Security Council, whether you vote or you don't vote, you have made a statement. So it's very important. Then secondly, the war in Gaza may still go on for quite a while. I'm not seeing it coming over very soon. It will still be there for quite a while. And the key issue are still there because the hostages are yet to return. The Israeli security forces are still saying we are yet to ensure that we'll get Hamas out of Gaza. And Hamas, on their own parts, has not agreed to some certain point. So, if you ask me, in a couple of months, perhaps over a year, the crisis will still be on.
The issue we're looking at now is the Ramadan coming already here with us. And that's one of the key issues the U.S. is looking at, and also the world at large, knowing that it's a holy period for Muslims. Wouldn't that be unfair on the part of the Israelis not to honor or respect this period?
Well, I think the issue is,
wouldn't that also instigate this to turn it into, technically a holy war?
No, I'm not seeing a holy war happen. People know that the issue in Palestinian has been on for centuries. So if you take time to read about the history of the Palestine and where we are today, it's a long-standing issue. I mean, whether in the 19th century it was an issue, in the 20th century, and in the 21st century. So it's going to be there for a long time. But what I think would happen, I'm sure at a point in time, reason will prevail. Perhaps both parties will be able to embrace two-state solution. Because as it is, both parties seems not to be predisposed to two-state solution. Yeah.
Hotel, let's move on and come back to on the national level. talking about the second Niger bridge, Omahi Dumps Onitsha bypass design says it saves Nigeria 300 billion naira. For some pundits, they believe that this calls for retrospective probing and also questioning of the former Minister of Works and Housing, Babatunde Fashola, as to why he would give Nigeria a design that would cost Nigeria 300 billion, that's one. Secondly, a design that is filled with flaws, according to Dave Umahi, that he noticed there were a lot of flaws in the design. How do you see this playing out? We also noticed that Dave Umahi, when he took over, did say asphalt wasn't good enough for our roads, rather concrete should be used. Do you see, is this about trying to, paint whatever he had, Fashola's, era bad to look good? Is that what we're seeing? Or Mahi being someone who's in the construction industry, who knows, his field, doing the right thing, and Fashola, who is a lawyer, not knowing so much about what he was doing.
Okay, incidentally, let me speak to Second Niger Bridge. It's an issue I have spoken to. Second Niger Bridge was designed by President Ibrahim Babangida. That's number one. I recall some years ago when I have a friend whose uncle was a professor of engineering at University of Benin. And we visited the man in Benin, and the man showed us the design for Second Niger Bridge. That's in the early 90s. So Second Niger Bridge, first, is not the idea of Obasanjo, nor the idea of Yaradua, nor the idea of Jonathan, or the idea of President Muhammadu Buhari. It's been there. The design has been there. All you have is they keep updating the design. So the current Minister of Works and Housing, Dave Umahi, could have his ideas.
Or Fashola you're talking about?
No, the current minister.
Okay, the current
yeah, let's begin with the current minister. Okay. Would have his idea of what he thinks should happen. But I think there should be a bypass. Because if you take the Second Niger Bridge into Onitsha, you're also going to create an additional problem. Onitsha is, incidentally, I spent over 28 years there. That's where I grew up, so I know it's my town. It's a home to me. So I understand. I recall as far back as 1973, our relatives who are coming from Lagos, from Benin, from Warri, have to sleep over during Christmas because you spend several days on top of the bridge. So by the time you get into Onitsha, it would have been so late to continue your journey. So we usually will prepare to receive relatives who are going to sleep over before they continue their journey the next day. So I'm conversant with that area very well. So if you're building a second Niger bridge, the biggest thing you should do is to ensure that the bridge doesn't get into Onitsha. Head into outside Onitsha so that you can have, an example is the Bini bypass. The Bini bypass, avoided that Ugbo road coming all the way from Okada, and it has saved a lot of stress. If you have traveled from Lagos down to the east and you need to pass through Bowo by Uniben from Okada, Ekeadolo, you will know what it is. But now you just take the bypass and you are heading to Oriongo. So that's the way to go.
All right,
but I don't want to get into the details of their politics between Fashola or Mahi and other. But what I think is that the best design we should have is to ensure anybody coming in from Lagos or whatever or into the east shouldn't need to pass through Onitsha if you don't have any business there.
Okay, let's look at in terms of he saying there were flaws and also the amount of money saving Nigeria, 300 billion. Do you think that's an indictment?
No, I don't think it's an indictment because why is it not an indictment? You are simply talking about, I have an idea of design. You are talking about a design. I will sit down, do bill of quantity for a construction intervention or program. All I need to do, as at this point in time, this is what I want as a design. So if you read design, you could read design as a way of saving costs because you think I no longer have this. No, not need. I no longer have this money available. It could be cutting your coat according to the size of the cloth, not necessarily the size of your body. That could be what we are doing. But again, the question to ask, if you look at the bigger picture, are we creating additional problems that in 10 years, in 20 years' time, we'll be solving? It's like when you move over Abuja and see the reconstruction work going on, sometimes you question the initial people who dropped that design. Were they not thinking about an explosion in population? In fact, there's a book I read on the design of Abuja. I realized that at initial estimate, they were expecting not more than 325,000 people to be within the city center. That's what the infrastructure were built for. 326,000 people. But you and I know how many millions of people who are currently in the city center, who come in every day. And that's why there's a pressure on the infrastructure within the city center.
All right, very interesting talking point. Now, it's now time for us to move into the state level, to where we're looking at the probate of Shuaibu Edo. CJ reviews a panel, places 2 members is the talking point we're looking at. Let's look at the happenings in Edo State. Now, the panel, the CJ has decided to replace 2 members. Some are saying, why the replacement? Are these replacements supposed to be those who are in sync with what the end goal is, or this replacement is on behalf of whose interests are they for? Why did they have to replace this after barely a week after setting up the committee? Is there a change of plan? For you, what's playing out in Edo State? How do you see it ending up?
Well, Edo, it's a tragedy foretold. Ask me how. For me, it's more or less a drama, just like we have had since 1999, what you call the impeachment of deputy governors. You know how it ends? The impeached deputy governor would go to, assuming they succeed in impeaching Philip Shuaibu, he will go to Supreme Court. He will get justice. Perhaps then their tenure would have run out. He will be paid every single allowance accruable to him. We saw it play out in Abia. We saw it play out in Ondo. You remember Akeredolu, when his deputy was impeached, he went to the Supreme Court, got justice, and he was paid. We saw it play out in Enugu under Chime. No, it's simply political drama. I usually don't pay attention to it. You know why I don't pay attention to it? Because the idea is simple. The end goal is get Shuaibu out, because Shuaibu say, I want to run. And he has been told not to run, and he say, I must run. So get him impeached. Impeachment for Shuaibu, if you ask me, is simply create a distraction so that he's unable to decamp to another party and be a candidate. So he won't be able to concentrate. So that's actually the idea. Get him busy fighting impeachment, because when you're fighting impeachment as a sitting deputy governor, you won't be able to decamp to another party to pick up a ticket and fight for and give a fight. So they have succeeded in getting that distraction on. It happened to former Vice President Atiku Abubakar. He had an ambition of becoming President of Federal Republic of Nigeria in 2007. By 2005, 2006, we saw the crisis in the presidency. There were attempts to get him out as vice president. It didn't work. It ended in court. There was a time they say, "Oh, you are not," because you moved from your party PDP to AC Action Congress, and finally we saw Supreme Court rule that in fact the deputy and his principal do not even need to belong to the same party. In Enugu, they were saying the man, what was the reason for that he was running a poultry in his house? You remember?
Yes.
Onyebuchi?
Yes.
And they finally impeached him. But he was restored. But unfortunately, by the time he was restored, their tenure has run out. So the only thing he gained was that his allowances, everything due to him as a deputy governor, were paid. So it's all drama. But the drama in Edo is simply this. Get Shuaibu worked up, get him busy, not to be able to run under the platform of any other party. So let's see how it unfolds.
All right, I think let's just delve away into Togo. Something interesting played out in Togo yesterday in terms of the Togo lawmakers, where the Togolese lawmakers adopted a new constitution, moving the country from presidential to parliamentary system, giving the parliament the power to elect the president of their country. Do you think, we know that 60 lawmakers in Nigeria at a point, or are still in the process of trying to lobby Nigerians and certain lawmakers to probably take the idea of returning Nigeria to parliamentary system of governance? And we know that Abdullahi Ango, one foremost northern politician, also is backing that move. Do you think that move would help cost of governance and probably help us produce the government or the president we truly all want?
Now the first question
can we trust our lawmakers to be?
Let's follow through Togo. Since Togo was created over almost 60 years ago, it's only one family that had ruled the country. Are you aware?
Mbesira.
Yes. From father to son. So invariably, the sitting president of Togo is afraid of his shadows, if you ask me. He's looking, what's my future? What's the future I'm going to leave behind? He attempted getting a third term, and he couldn't get it. So all he did was, let's try a new law. What it simply means is that it could end in his party, if his party, because parliamentary system of government is an indirect election in terms of the prime minister is not elected by the people. It's actually the politicians who elect the prime minister. How? Whoever is the leader of the party with the highest majority votes in the parliament becomes the prime minister. So he has the executive power, he becomes the head of government. So invariably he would have thought, my party has the most spread across the country. So if we adopt parliamentary system of government, I will be able to have a successor. How is he going to negotiate it? Very simple. Get one of his loyalists, one of his protege to become the leader of the party. And that party gets the highest number of votes. That's the end. So they would have read what happened in Senegal, where Macky Sall couldn't push his agenda. His party became very unpopular. A young man who has been leading a young activist ended up as the new president. So in his head, he would have thought, oh, how do we avoid this? So I don't see it as any innovation.
Do you think it's something?
So what is going on in Togo is not an innovation.
No, not.
It's about self-interest.
Is this something that could play out in Nigeria? Would it benefit?
Incidentally, the problem with Nigeria, if you ask me, is not even the system of government we run. The problem with Nigeria is the structure of Nigeria.
In terms of?
Structure in terms of, one, we claim to be a federal government. Federation constitutes of two major units, the center and the state.
Sure.
But what you have is, in Nigeria, is we have three units. We have local government, states, and federal. That shouldn't be. It should be the federal and the state. And perhaps that's why, even in 1999 Constitution, the power of deciding the structure of the local government is vested with the State House of Assembly, showing that you have, in true sense of a federation, you should have two units. That's one. Then two, the issue of devolution of power.
Okay.
There's no reason why, for instance, in National Assembly today, every lawmaker wants a university, a college of education, a university, college of health sciences, a
Any major institution,
a major federal institution to
in
be in their
locality.
in their constituency. So, meanwhile, we are unable, we have not shown capacity to run the education sector. That's a problem. In the United States, that is a federal system of where we derive our federal system of government from. The national government only owns the military academies. They don't own universities. It's the military academies that belongs to the United States government. But here you have the federal government playing more role than the states. So the challenge is actually the structure of Nigeria. So I'm happy that we're having a constitutional amendment, but my also worry is that I have seen over time a constitutional amendment. In fact, between 1999 and 2003, there were two committees on constitutional amendment, one set up by former President Olusegun Obasanjo and the National Assembly. They had two. I think that one set up by President
Good luck.
No, by President Obasanjo was headed by Clement Ebri, Presidential Committee on the Constitution. And then we had that of National Assembly, and none of them made any alteration or made any useful contribution that led to restructuring the country. Then we had President Yaradua didn't have an opportunity of completing his tenure. President Jonathan also set it up. We moved on to President Muhammadu Buhari. So at each point in time, I followed through that process. And I noticed what it is an activity for National Assembly. It's an activity that has not led to any useful outcome, if you ask me. So
directly, this current one might follow the same.
No, I'm not optimistic. I have never been, because when you monitor a process over time in 24 years.
So what's the benefit of it if the lawmakers keep doing the same thing?
No. It's just an activity. Okay, let's look at it. In 2006, I wrote a paper on constitutional amendment, the U.S. example. Now, in the history of America, in almost 240 years now, from 1776 to date, constitutional amendment, you don't shut down the process because you are doing constitutional amendment. So constitutional amendment is normal legislative activity. Pick up an issue, because the U.S. law says 2/3 of the state must approve for any constitution amendment to be done. And then also 2/3 of voters in 2/3 states. So any issue for amendment, you put it as part of item for voting. But what we have here, because that's a form of plebiscite, but what we have here, people sit and say we are amending the constitution. So because you need to get the participation of citizens.
The public hearing that is conducted, is that not the essence of that?
Most times, if you watch the public hearing, nobody takes any input from public hearing because it's already predetermined.
By the lawmakers? Is that what you're saying?
No, by the political class. They've already predetermined what they want to. But if you put it for vote, as an item for vote, you save time. That's number one. Then two, in the U.S., the first set of amendments were nine issues for amendment. Bill of Rights amendment. That's what it was called. And I think about 7 passed through. 3 were dropped. And one of the items that was proposed in about 1796 or thereabout was finally passed in 1992. So but what you have here is that a particular National Assembly would want to solve the whole issue. They will pick 200 items. In fact, the first item was 126 items in 2006. That's not how to govern. Because what it means, you wouldn't have any in-depth discussion on any issue. In fact, that paper, I think I published it internationally. Constitutional Amendment Lessons from United States of America. I think there's a newspaper in Nigeria, National Interest. They published it on May 27th, 2006. So I have engaged in these issues over time. So what I'm saying is this, look, we need to save cost. What do we need to save cost? Any issue for amendment comes to National Assembly on the floor of the House. You don't need to set up any committee, spend money. You know, for me, it's a waste. We have wasted this money. We wasted it in 2003, wasted it in again in 2010. You know, so for me, it's a national waste that nobody needs.
All right, let's move on to, we're still looking at the state of the nation and all that is playing out in the last 7 days or more. And another very interesting talking point has to do with the fleeing fugitive, the National Security Agency, talking about in global search for the Binance official. That story, the fact that one of the chief executives of Binance, who was in custody, was let go, and now we are seeking the help of the Interpol and the international community. What does that do to our reputation on the global scene?
No, I think it's not right to say was let go.
Because
nobody has officially admitted.
Prayers,
perhaps he requested, oh, please, this is Ramadan, I need to go to the mosque and pray.
This is someone who was under custody for a national crime against the Nigerian economy. And does he have that liberty?
No, I think it would be too hasty to say he was let go. We could say perhaps the people who were supposed to keep him.
What did they do?
No, it's a dereliction of duty.
Wasn't that deliberate? Hold on. Wasn't that deliberate?
No, hold on. Dereliction of duty and let go are two different things. No, I want us to be...
Are you saying it wasn't deliberate?
No, but the Office of the National Security Advisor said we are investigating it. So let's wait for their report. Let's wait for... Because how was he able to convince them that he needed to pray? That's number one. Or is it that they say, oh, well, in the spirit of the season, you can go and pray. And when he went to pray, didn't they go with him to ensure that they returned him back? But let's wait for the outcome of the investigation that the Office of the National Security Advisor has told us they would conduct. So what to do is let them get back to us with, look, this is the actions we've taken. But in terms of vicarious responsibility of ensuring that he's kept in custody, is that of whoever or whatever team that was assigned to that job. Is a dereliction of duty.
Well, he was under the NSA's custody because they were the first people that got him arrested at the airport.
Okay.
So are you saying the national NSA's office or officials do not know how grievous is the crime or whatever financial infraction?
Incidentally, what you call the office of the NSA, it's an amalgam of all security agencies.
But still has national issues.
So you have
national security. No,
that's not. No, I want to respond first.
Okay.
On the structure of the NSA's office. The NSA's office is an amalgam of all the security formations. That's number one. So perhaps, so you have the police, you have the DSS, you have the immigration. Military, immigration, civil defense. That's what you call the Office of NSA. He's like a coordinating agency for the security within the security system. So hold on. So whatever team, that's why I use the word team, that were assigned to ensure their safety in custody are the people perhaps you would be investigating. So and which the office, so it will be speculative for anybody to sit anywhere and say, look, they were let go. I don't think so.
So could we point out lack of synergy for this, what played out?
No, it's not synergy because usually there's a team lead in any of these activities. If you're going on a joint operation and you have people from every formation, there will be a team lead. The team lead could come from the army.
Well, are you comfortable nobody has lost their job? Based on what's
usually when there's an infraction, there will be an administrative process.
Penalty?
No, administrative process. Administrative process, if you say we're investigating it, it means we have set up an administrative inquiry. An administrative inquiry usually should be an internal process, I'm sure you're aware, and perhaps when the inquiry is over, I'm sure the office of NSA will brief us and say, this is where we are, this is what will happen, and these are the actions we've taken. Like they've told Nigerians, these are the actions we'll take to bring them back to book. And that's all.
For the international community, how serious would they take us? And don't you think it was too easy for him to have, escaped from custody?
People escape from custody all over the world. Even if you watch the Americans who go to Colombia, get a drug warlord, put him in Texas or in Colorado, and somehow the person escapes. So escape of fugitives or people under custody, this is not the first time it's happening. And it's not only in Nigeria. I'm telling you, drug warlords who have been taken from Colombia to the United States.
But they must have been compromised somewhere. Can we say that?
But I think it would be fair to the people managing the system to let's allow them come up with their investigation and speak to us.
There's no compromise somewhere?
No. Well, whatever we are saying now are merely speculative and conjectures. Whatever you and I say now will be simply conjecture.
Okay. On the final terms, in terms of, do you think we're likely to get any success in getting him back to Nigeria?
Well, Interpol, you have Interpol who will do their job. And Interpol send out a signal to them. These are the description of the man we are looking for. They know how to do their job.
All right, let's go for a very quick break. When we come back from the break, we'll be taking one more discourse, then we'll be wrapping up this talking point, and probably we'll be reaching the business end of the Global Morning Show, and that will be it for today. But first of all, let's go for a very quick break. When we return, the quiet discussion continues. The calls.
So nobody knows him. If you see the man on the road, you know him.
All right, welcome back from that quick break. We're still talking issues of national interest, and we've got a policy consultant in the person of Emmanuel Ozomene joining us as we looked at all the issues making the rounds in the state of the nation. And let's just flip into the papers. We've got two more papers we want to look into before we wrap up the program. We've got some very interesting stories on the Punch newspaper. Let's see what the Punch headlines and the Vanguard are saying this morning before we call it a wrap. Let's see, looking at the Punch, there's a very interesting story there. Looking at the CBN, EFCC probe banks, firms over alleged forex racketeering is a very interesting talking point we want to look on. Then we've got others heal death sentence on Chinese for killing lover. Then we've got unemployment responsible for rising banditry and kidnapping, says Olusegun Obasanjo. Then we've got NCC insist on NIN a deadline, telecos bar lines Friday. Let's just quickly look at this before we'll call it a wrap on today's edition. Looking at CBN, EFCC, probe banks, firms of alleged forex. Are these things how sad is this? Because we know that if you go to banking halls, you see signs if X amount of money transaction is taking place, the bank is obliged to inform the anti-graft agencies. So how come these things go on undetected, unreported, and banks go do you think there's going to be serious sanctions?
No, but this is forest racketeering.
Yeah,
okay,
forex.
let me tell
even
you.
for the forex.
No, let me tell you what happens.
Yeah.
Someone goes to his bank and fills, I think, Form C or whatever. There's a form you fill if you need a foreign exchange. And, the banks usually would give out at a bank rate. There's a bank rate and there's a parallel market rate. And usually you have some sort of a gap in between them. And then he gets this foreign exchange. He has filled in the form, I think Form C, that I want to import 13 metric tons of fertilizer. 13,000 metric tons of fertilizer. And you give the man the money, raise the LC, and he doesn't do that. And he decides to go and sell it. That's the racketeering, which is round tripping.
Round tripping, yeah.
Or somebody comes with an admission to a university in Amsterdam, in the US, in the UK, and applies for student, I want to pay school fees, I want to do this, that type of thing. And he gets the money and do not, in fact, there's no admission in the first place. So all they need is just access to that money. If you watch on a daily basis, the CBN would publish names of beneficiaries of foreign exchange. I'm sure you've seen it. It's on their website. School fees, medicals, these are. So at the other end, were these expenses expended for those purposes? That's the question.
Okay, so my next question
I'm sure that should be part of the...
Do you think this probe is going to come out with anything positive, something lasting, something that's going to be a deterrent?
No, if you are diligent, if whatever team that is assigned to carry out the probe, all they need to do is to be diligent, fair, open, and transparent. We will get a result. All
right, so we're hoping we get those three, qualities so that the financial infractions in the country will be solved once and for all. All right, I want to say a big thank you to Emmanuel Ozomena, who is a policy consultant, for his very deep analysis of all the talking points we looked at the State of the Nation and also the papers this morning on Global Morning. We'll go for a quick break. When we return from the break, we'll be wrapping up the program for good. I want to say thank you very much for joining us. Always a pleasure having you.
My pleasure. Thank you.
All right, let's go for a very quick break. When we return, we'll be wrapping up the show. Right, that's how much we are going to give to you today on Global Morning. I want to say thank you for joining us all through from 7 a.m. where we looked at various issues. And also, remember, we're still in the mood of celebrating the World International Day Against Racism and those struggling with racism. That's the week from 21st to today, 27th of March. I want to say thank you to our guest, Emmanuel Ozoimena, who is a policy consultant for joining us throughout the program this morning and giving us a very balanced analysis. My name is Anthony Momodi, saying thank you for joining me on the program. Let's do this again tomorrow. Good morning.
Welcome to Global Morning.
The death toll from flooding.
Most time our politicians just bring in policies too, for sure.
Incidentally, we have several more stories.
The legislature was carefully crafted to
22.2% inflation rates as of April this year. What does that say about where we are as a country?
I think Nigeria has resorted to being resilient.
Before you call a police station, before they even leave, they'll take permission from.
I don't think there's really anything on ground to improve.
The struggle with the ASIS strike.
You have done your work, you have put us to the wall. We are not the slaves.
I'm not a small boy. You should have given me the report.
I have not seen the report.